Step into the world of estate planning, probate, and wills and trusts with the Del Toro Law Podcast. Leading the way is your host, Attorney Peter Del Toro.
Do all estate have to go through probate? Find out in our exclusive interview with an experienced estate attorney. Welcome back, everyone. Garfield Bowen, co-host / producer, back in the studio with Attorney Peter Del Toro. Peter, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Garfield. How are you?
I am well. So, Peter, does all estate need to be probated?
Absolutely not. If we have our way, we set it up so when you come in to see us, your estate will not go through probate. But unfortunately, a lot of people's estates do end up going through probate, which is a lengthy process and could be an expensive process. And just a little planning up front usually can avoid that. If you half the people out there, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, have no estate plan in place whatsoever. And there's for another reasons, bunch of reasons. They don't think, I got a long time, I don't know what's I'm not gonna die right away or this or that, and then something unexpected happens, right? And we have these assets that we don't even know what to do with. So some people can pass away without having a will or a trust, and the state of Florida has a set of default rules. Well, that's going to end up going through the probate process. If you have a will, typically you go through the probate process, but there is ways that we can work with people to avoid probate even with the will. And then in the trust, we're going to really set up things to avoid probate off the bat. So it's just a matter of sitting down, everybody with an individual, because everybody's situation is different. And for a short consultation, we can usually set up a plan of attack to avoid probate. Sometimes if you have a lot of assets in estates, it's a little more expensive to do that. Sometimes you don't have many things. We can avoid probate, relatively on the cheap side, but our goal is to not see anything go through probate if possible.
Peter, is there like a number in terms of the total assets where, it may be better to just do a will after a certain number and over a certain number, the trust, or the number is not a consideration?
The number is a consideration, but it's only one consideration. Sometimes, even with a large number, depending on what type of asset you have, we can get away with the will and some other documents. But usually, your higher net worth individuals are going to end up with a trust because it's a more flexible document they can use their entire life, and it pretty much guarantees avoids probate if we set everything up correctly. But a lot of times we can do that with a will. It just depends on not only the amount of assets, but the types of assets, whether it's property, businesses, rental properties, or more stocks, bonds, retirement accounts. All these different types of things are the assets that typically people would have, and each of those assets has basically a different way to be classified and to be categorized, so we can avoid the probate process and get those assets to where my client wants them to go, whether it be their children, their spouse, a charity. We want to make sure it gets there with the least amount of interference and avoid probate, which, like I said, is a lengthy and expensive process.
I know we can probably do a whole nother episode on this, but
we probably will.
Most people here in Florida are transplants.
Sure.
They have assets all over the place.
Yes.
So can a trust prevent probates in other states, or it depends on the state?
No, that's a great question, and it actually can. If you had, let's say, property in 3 or 4 different states, and you passed away with a will, and those properties were titled in your name, you'd have to do a probate in Florida, and then a probate, what they call an ancillary probate, in every single other state that has property. Because let's say you had a piece of property in New York, a Florida court doesn't have any jurisdiction over New York property. So New York says, hey, you got to come and do a probate up here too. And your property in Tennessee, you got to do a probate over here too. So you can see how that could add up. A typical probate on the cheap side is $5,000 or $6,000. You can see how that adds up very quickly in each state. Whereas we had a trust, and they had the one trust can hold title to those properties in different states and avoid probate because the trust owns it, not the individual. So when the individual passes, the trust still has the trust is still living, and that trust can dispose of those properties and sell them right off without going through the probate process, or pass them to the next generation that was due to inherit those properties. Whatever my client would like, that's how we set it up.
That's one big nugget for all our listeners that have property all over the place. Listen, Peter, love it. You have a wonderful rest of the day. We'll see you in the next episode.
You too, Garfield. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Del Toro Law Podcast, your source for estate planning, probate, and wills and trusts. For a complimentary consultation, visit deltoro.law or give us a call at 772-444-0101. That's 772-444-0101.